Hi, I'm Nadine Thornhill, sexuality educator, and welcome to this week's episode of You Ask, I Answer, where I answer your questions about sex and sexuality. So this week's question comes via my website, and it is, I was wondering if I could pick your very experienced brain about working as a sex educator, particularly for parents. I've been giving workshops to friends and extended contacts for a while now and deciding if I really want to invest in making this my career. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you do and what background makes you a better professional. So thank you so much for your question, and congratulations. It sounds like you're off to a great start as a sexuality educator yourself. And I love talking about what I do, so I'm really excited to answer this question. So I'll start off giving you a bit of information sort of about my background and how I got started and what I'm doing now and the things that I think make for a good sexuality educator. So I got started working at a sex-positive store called Venus Envy, which is in Ottawa, and if you're in Ottawa, you should go there and shop. They're amazing. I started there doing workshops, and that was really a lot of fun. And then from there, I moved over to Planned Parenthood, where I was the program coordinator for a youth program called Insight Theater. And while I was there, I got to work a lot with youth in junior high and high school, and I really got to see how powerful it was to be able to teach youth about sexuality and how beneficial it was. From there, I decided I wanted to do more with that, but I realized that I really needed a lot more education and training, and so I went with my family to California, and I went back to school, and I got my degree and focused on child and adolescent sexuality, and then came back to Canada. And I'm in Toronto now, and I work as a family coach and consultant and a sexuality educator. What I do as a family consultant is I will work with adults who need help teaching their children and their teens about sexuality or talking to their children and teens about sexuality. For example, someone might come to me and say, okay, I have a kid, they're in high school, I think they're thinking about becoming sexually active, or I think they might be sexually active. I want to talk to them about it, but I'm not sure where to start. So we'll probably sit down in our first session and talk first about, what are your values? What's important to you in terms of sexuality? What do you want to teach your kid in terms of sexuality? What are your boundaries? If your kid lives with you at home, what are you okay with them doing? What are you not okay with them doing? Things like that. And then in subsequent conversations, I might talk to them about, okay, let's say you want to have a conversation with your kids about safer sex. Here are ways that typically are effective to bring it up. Here are questions you can ask them. Let's talk about things like, what do they need in terms of being safer when they're having sex? Do they need birth control? Do they need condoms? Do they need gloves? Do they need dental dams? Do they need lube? Do you know where to get it? Do they know where to get it? How are they going to have access to these things? How can you support that? I also give workshops where I talk to groups of people, and that's really fun. That's one of my favorite things that I get to do because I get to meet a whole bunch of people at once. I also write. So I write for different websites and magazines about child and adolescent sexuality. And I'm also working on a super big project right now, which is a big book for families about how to become sex educators for their kids. So look for that coming at some point in the future. Finally, you asked about what makes someone a good professional in this field. So a lot of what I've learned by watching and copying sexuality educators that I really respect and admire. And something that I've learned from watching them is that if you're an educator, really a lot of your job is just about learning. And the more I've learned about sex, the more I realize that there is to learn about sex. It's sort of a Pandora's box. And when I first started working in sexuality education, I had this idea that I would just be like, oh, I'll just be like a sexuality generalist, and I'll just, know a lot of things about sex, and anytime somebody has a question, they can just come and ask me. And then I really started getting into it, and I was like, nope, there's way too much information for one person to be able to hold it all and give it out there. So very quickly I realized like I'm going to have to focus and hone in on one specific aspect of sexuality. I chose child and adolescent sexuality because I know that learning about sexuality would have been really helpful for me when I was growing up. I had great parents and they told me a lot about sex, but there was also a lot I didn't know that I wish I had known growing up. And then another reason is because I'm a parent, and so I'm kind of working through all of this with my own kid. And so I was like, I have to learn this anyway because I'm raising a child. So it just seemed like the sensible place to go. Whatever you're doing in terms of teaching other people about sex, I think it's good to be working on that stuff within yourself and thinking about that stuff and how it applies to your own life. So like I said, I work in child and adolescent sexuality, and so a lot of what I teach other people, I have to constantly remind myself to apply in my own life when I'm talking to my own kid. I don't want to teach people things that I'm not willing to do myself in my own life. And one more thing that I think is really important as an educator, and especially as a sexuality educator, is that what we're telling people is grounded and rooted in fact. I really like to look at a lot of studies, like peer-reviewed journals, books by authors that I trust and that I know their stuff, so that when I'm either walking into a session with a client or a workshop or anything, that I know that what I'm talking about is rooted in fact, because, I'm an educator. And yes, I have my opinions on things, and yes, the facts that I read will inform my opinions about things, but really that's what I'm there for. I'm there to give people fact-based information. All right, so that's our question and answer for this week. If you have a question for me, you can get in touch here on Facebook. You can find me over at Twitter. I'm there at Nadine Thornhill. Or you can get in touch through my website, nadinethornhill.com/contact. All right, thank you so much for watching. Have a great week, and I will see you soon. Bye.